Hello friends, my name is Joseph Solomon Mayega. I'm a pastor from Uganda. I'm so privileged and honored to share with you about my ministry and about what God is doing in Uganda. I really feel that it's good and necessary for me to share the testimony of the working of God in Uganda. As many people have heard the working of evil men like the former president of Uganda, dictator Idi Amin, what he did in Uganda by killing many people. As many people have heard of the rebel groups and rebel leaders killing many of our people, killing the children of Uganda, enslaving many children of Uganda, and all the epidemic diseases we've had in Uganda. I feel it's also good to get to know what God has done and what God is doing in Uganda. As I started by my introduction that I'm a pastor, the ministry I'm involved in, although was started by my dad, but it was born or birthed in the prison during the regime of Idi Amin. Before Idi Amin became a president in 1971, Uganda was predominantly a Christian nation. But Idi Amin, as a Muslim, when he became a president, he came with a different idea or plan, trying to turn around Uganda to become an Islamic nation. And one way he thought of doing that or having his plans coming to pass was to persecute the church, because the church was busy evangelizing the whole nation, preaching and proclaiming that Jesus is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. Idi Amin threatened that whoever would be found proclaiming and preaching Jesus as the Son of God and the Savior of the world will be thrown in prison or even to be killed. There was such a time in Uganda when the persecution of the church got so intensified, and that was 1976. The missionaries we had in Uganda were given just hours to leave the country, and they left. And the church went underground. The church was banned in a way that we could not meet in our normal setting of the church building to fellowship. But of course, we carried on having church, hiding in different ways. I can remember, however, although I was young, but I can still remember very well that we couldn't meet in the building of our church, but we were meeting in homes, rotating from one house to the other, so that the soldiers could not locate us where we were meeting. I'm so privileged also to say that I'm born and raised in a Christian family. And actually, my dad was my pastor. So as that persecution went on, a number of people, many who were in the ministry, leadership during that time, in 78, they said, we are being persecuted, we are being stopped to use our church buildings, not to get on the streets to preach the good news of the Lord. But we cannot help it, not to preach the good news to our people and not to have to enjoy the fellowship of the presence of God in our church buildings. So they came out boldly and they said, if it means to die, we'll die for the sake of the gospel. One day, many people had gathered in one bigger church and they were enjoying the presence of God. And my dad was among those men who were there. Idi Amin sent his soldiers. They encompassed the whole church. They only let the children to leave. But all the people who were there, the rest, were badly mistreated and beaten in many ways. Some people managed to sneak and they ran away for their lives. But men totaling to 50 in number, actually 51 and 21 and 20 women, they stood on their faith in Jesus and they said, we are here because of Jesus. We believe he's the Son of God and the Savior of the world. We are not in disobedience to the president, but we are obeying God. They were thrown in the prison. As I said, men totaling to 51. That night they were confined in a small cell that could only accommodate 20 people. They stayed in the prison, badly tortured. Time came when they were sentenced to death because Idi Amin came to realization that these people who were thrown in the prison, it's like the church had changed the location or the address. Even while in the prison, they kept on calling on Jesus and praising Jesus. So he said, I'm gonna kill these people so that the nation would know that once I make a command or once I said don't do this, then nobody should try to go against my will or my wish. My dad, he was already a pastor and he was actually the senior in age. God used him mightily to encourage his fellow men in the prison. While in the prison, the Lord gave him a vision, or you could say a dream. And it was about that, though you are sentenced to death, you are not going to be killed, but I'm going to bring your deliverance. And God gave him a mandate that when you are released from here, I want you to reach out to my people with the message of holiness and righteousness. Because without holiness, no one will see the Lord. After a while, when they had been in prison, as God gave that vision to my dad, and my dad had shared it with his fellow men, and he had encouraged them to stay firm and strong in the Lord. As God promised, miraculously, God in his way and in his dealing, the death sentence was reversed and they were released. That was still 1978. God continued to work in a greater way. In such a way that Idi Amin, when he became a president, he declared himself the life president of Uganda. But guess what? In 79, he was overthrown, ran into exile in Saudi Arabia, and that's where he died in 2003. After their release, of course, Idi Amin was gone. As God gave my dad that vision, in 1981, he started the ministry in the names of the Church of Gospel Messengers of Holiness and Righteousness. God used my dad in a mighty way, reaching out to many parts of the country, countryside, in many villages, preaching uncompromisingly, and he planted a number of churches. However, in 1984, the Lord called my dad home.